Daddy Letters Series, Season 3, Letter 69. Stewardship of Children, Health, Image, and Possessions.
Dear Boaz and Ruth, in this final counseling letter on stewardship, we will present some considerations for the remaining assets that we must steward well, and those are stewardship of children, health, image, and possessions. Although it seems children are more of a liability than an asset, they are valuable gifts that serve eternal purposes in God's kingdom. Children are valuable because they are the future leaders and workers in the church. We invest money and time in children, and from them, we reap a return of righteous workers in the kingdom. Good citizens to anchor society. Strong defenders of our nation. And sometimes caretakers for us in our old age. The process of rearing children also returns life lessons to us parents, that make us better, more mature, and able to love with a purer love than before. We teach children, but they also teach us. In some cases, children become contributors to the economic well-being of the family, helping to work farms, apprenticing in the family business, or bringing outside income into the home. Children are a precious asset that we should dutifully, and lovingly, steward to achieve God's purposes on earth. They are the future Christians, future citizens, future business leaders, and the future of our nation. It is a tragedy that many children grow up sensing they are in the way of their parents' happiness. They are made to feel like excess baggage that parents reluctantly drag around. Parents fall for the modern cliché that says, you don't have to spend a lot of time with children, just make sure you spend quality time. It is a cliché that was created to assuage the guilt of parents who are unwilling to sacrifice their careers, fun, and ambitions, to rear the next generation. The truth is, that parents must spend a lot of quality time with kids, in order to develop them properly. Some parents believe that as long as they provide great material wealth, and opportunities, to their children, they are doing enough. They deprive their kids of themselves, in the critical period, of birth to 3 years of age, where parental contact is essential for developing a healthy psyche, and emotional base in their kids. And so, a child that might have become the next great statesman, instead becomes a weak, mentally unadjusted adult. The child that might have become the next great evangelist, grows up doubting there is a God. It is so important to control who gives our children their values, and who influences their worldview. If parents don't do it, kids combinationally develop their own misguided beliefs, and absorb the rest from peers and paid caretakers. Poorly adjusted children can become an awful financial drain on the home, as well as a disruptive influence on marriages. The importance of managing the asset, and blessing, of children cannot be overemphasized. Moving on to the asset of health, a most valuable asset indeed. You've heard it before, health is wealth. Truer words were never spoken. It is difficult to pursue the opportunities, or manage the work that leads to wealth, if we are unhealthy in mind, body, or spirit. Healthy Christians are a tremendous asset, not only to the home, but to the church, community, and the nation. Healthy people are productive, better decision makers, stronger warriors, as well as able protectors, and guardians of the civil and national order. Healthy people have the capacity, and vibrancy, to tirelessly serve their mates, pouring themselves into giving affection, service, and support. So what about the asset of image? A good image is of incalculable worth. A few scriptures will help make the point, starting with Proverbs 22, verse 1. A good name is to be chosen rather than great riches, and favor is better than silver or gold. And Ecclesiastes chapter 7, verse 1, says, a good name is better than precious ointment. Much has been made of the virtues of the Proverbs 31 wife. One of her virtues is her good name among her family members, as well as outsiders, as attested to in Proverbs 31, verses 28 through 31. It says, her children rise up and call her blessed, her husband also, and he praises her. Many women have done excellently, but you surpass them all. Charm is deceitful, and beauty is vain, but a woman who fears the Lord is to be praised. Give her of the fruit of her hands, and let her works praise her in the gates. But her good name is equaled by the good name of her husband, as spoken of in Proverbs 31, verse 23. Her husband is known in the gates when he sits among the elders of the land. You might say that together, they make the ultimate power couple, endowed with, and wielding God's granted influence and power. A good image opens doors of opportunity, and makes you a desirable employee and friend. A good image sheds a glorifying light upon God, from whom your goodness is derived. A good name makes people open to hearing your spiritual testimony, and it makes you more able to disciple others. A caveat must be presented here. You are only expected to steward your image to the extent that it is under your control. Sometimes Christians make enemies, who intentionally destroy their spotless image. We are not held accountable for that, except to make sure our behavior does not support their accusations. Luke 6, verse 22 instructs us. Blessed are you when people hate you and when they exclude you and revile you and spurn your name as evil, on account of the Son of Man. 1 Peter chapter 3, verses 13 through 17 provides more corroboration of this principle. Now who is there to harm you if you are zealous for what is good? But even if you should suffer for righteousness' sake, you will be blessed. Have no fear of them, nor be troubled, but in your hearts honor Christ the Lord as holy, always being prepared to make a defense to anyone who asks you for a reason for the hope that is in you, yet do it with gentleness and respect, having a good conscience, so that, when you are slandered, those who revile your good behavior in Christ may be put to shame. For it is better to suffer for doing good, if that should be God's will, than for doing evil. If you live so that your conscience is justifiably clear, then you have done your part, and then you can relax and let God defend your image. Don't expect His defense to always come right away, or in some dramatic fashion. Sometimes we must endure damage to our image for long periods of time before the truth comes out. But this patient endurance is in fact a form of managing your image, because you don't take matters into your own hands and potentially make things worse. David was tempted to take matters into his own hands when Nabal defrauded him. The story is in 1 Samuel 25, starting at verse 10. And Nabal answered David's servants, Who is David? Who is the son of Jesse? There are many servants these days who are breaking away from their masters. Shall I take my bread and my water and my meat that I have killed for my shearers and give it to men who come from I do not know where? So David's young men turned away and came back and told him all this. And David said to his men, Every man strap on his sword. And every man of them strapped on his sword. David also strapped on his sword. And about 400 men went up after David, while 200 remained with the baggage. But Nabal's wife, Abigail, went to David with gifts and begged him to stay his hand of vengeance, and he did. In so doing, he gave God a chance to defend his cause. The story picks up again at 1 Samuel 25, at verse 32. And David said to Abigail, Blessed be the Lord, the God of Israel, who sent you this day to meet me. Blessed be your discretion, and blessed be you, who have kept me this day from blood guilt and from working salvation with my own hand. For as surely as the Lord, the God of Israel lives who has restrained me from hurting you, unless you had hurried and come to meet me, truly by morning there had not been left to Nabal so much as one male. Then David received from her hand what she had brought him. And he said to her, Go up in peace to your house. See, I have obeyed your voice, and I have granted your petition. And Abigail came to Nabal, and behold, he was holding a feast in his house, like the feast of a king. And Nabal's heart was merry within him, for he was very drunk. So she told him nothing at all until the morning light. In the morning, when the wine had gone out of Nabal, his wife told him these things, and his heart died within him, and he became as a stone. And about 10 days later the Lord struck Nabal, and he died. And finally, we must steward our possessions. If we are not careful, our possessions can possess us. They become the means through which we find our identity, and we selfishly hoard them up, instead of sharing them with those in need. A healthy Christian is able to hold on to possessions with a loose grip, prepared to part with them in order to bless others, and they avoid accumulated possessions to occupy more attention than they should. Sometimes our inability to part with possessions may reveal a lack of faith, or fear of God not supplying what we need when we need it. We take it into our own hands to make sure we have what we need. We can't bear the thought of throwing something away, and then later needing it, but not being able to replace it. The Christian of great faith is able to travel through life packed lightly, ready to later suffer without if necessary, in order not to clutter the present with energy-draining attention to managing possessions. In its extreme form, addiction to possessions can create a mental disorder called hoarding. The definition of hoarding is a mental disorder characterized by persistent difficulty in parting with possessions, and engaging in excessive acquisition of items that are not needed, or for which there is no space available. This results in severely cluttered living spaces. Distress. and impairment to functioning in everyday life. Excessive acquisition is characterized by constantly amassing, or buying property for which there is not adequate space. The urge to amass possessions is followed by the difficulty to discard possessions, because there is a perceived need to save items for some unknown future purpose, and therefore distress associated with discarding them. Accumulation of possessions results in living spaces becoming disorderly and overcrowded to the point that they inhibit normal use of the home space, and sometimes constitute a risk to safety. This condition can be suffered in mild to acute levels. The proper name for this disorder is Pljushkin's disorder. People often become hoarders because of some negative psychiatric impact they have suffered, or because they assign strong sentimental meaning to various possessions, and therefore, are not able to part with them. Over half of hoarders report the onset of hoarding as being associated with a traumatic life event. That event could be rising fear of survival in a very dangerous and threatening world, growing social unrest, or the threat of war. A brand of hoarding, called prepping, has been produced by fear. It is not to say that the fear is not justified, but often the fear makes people acquire provisions to a level that compromises the peace and tranquility of daily life. To put it another way, they go past prudent preparation for potential disasters, to obsession with trying to ensure survival no matter what catastrophe might befall. Prepping is not a bad thing, as demonstrated by the way Joseph prepared Egypt for a coming famine. However, some people become obsessed with prepping, and over-prep instead of exercising faith. A good rule of thumb is that you have over-prepped when you far exceed the space and resources God has given you to store and maintain emergency provisions. But the major challenge to most Christians is not the temptation to become hoarders, it is the temptation to love possessions more than they love their fellow man, or even God. It is all too easy to adopt an idolatrous relationship with things. Christians who understand possessions are to be used, and not worshipped, live with a healthy association with their possession. They are happy to share their possessions, and they maintain a diminished value of them when they consider the glory of eternal life on streets of gold. Kids, this is all we have to present to you on the challenge of managing the assets with which God blesses our small business, called home. We hope it provides great provocation for great conversation between you two. And we hope it helps you to plan how you are going to manage your home business in ways that bring you marital fulfillment, and that glorifies God. Truly yours. Your familial board.